Okay, so for today, what's the best selection tool in Photoshop?
The non-destructive kind.
Hey, thank you, True. That's makes my heart want to cry.
The pen tool.
It is.
I just saw what you're supposed to do
Yeah,
for
what-
our assignment.
It is the pen tool, and everybody in the world hates the pen tool. How many people in this room have never even tried the pen tool? How many people have and just thought, there's no way? Yeah, and how many of you use it all the time? Do you do Illustrator as well? Are you a Path person?
I don't use Illustrator, but I use Photoshop for illustration. I need to transfer over into Illustrator, but
You'll actually like the pen tool in Illustrator better than in Photoshop. I don't know why they don't take the same engine and put it into Photoshop. It's so much better. But at any rate, it's a very frustrating tool to use. So I'm going to show you how to use it, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to remove all the frustration. And it's really actually ends up being quite simple to use. But it is hands down the best tool to use, especially for difficult selections. So I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to do a combination of a number of selection processes. So that's what this is going to be all about. So today is about pen tool. Everybody that you ask who's a pro at this kind of stuff will tell you at the end of the day it's the best tool to use. So what I do know about most of you is that even though you've never used the pen tool, when you actually go to make selections or specifically to refine them, a lot of people will whip out a paintbrush and they'll start to paint on a layer mask to control the selection. And what ends up happening is you paint along the edge and you make a mistake, so you change from white to black and you paint up on the mistake part, and then you make another mistake and you go back and forth and back and forth, and an hour later you still don't have the selection that you want. I'm just going to give you the best piece of advice that I'm going to give you all semester long. Bite the bullet, use the pen tool. You're done in 10 minutes, and then you're moving on. Trying to refine using a brush is incredibly difficult to do. So anyway, this is going to be my little speech about the pen tool, all right? I use it all the time. You get really good at it really quick. But I'm going to give you another hint about all of this. Do not try to use the pen tool with a tablet. It is a nightmare, and the reason is this, is when you're doing the pen tool, the advantage of it is you can see the edge that you want, and so your ability to actually put a point on the line that you want, the edge that you want, is really good. But look what happens when you do this. So I'm going to hover my pen tool over my tablet, and you hover just above the tablet, because if you're on the tablet, you're actually drawing a path with the pen tool. You don't want to do that, but so you're hovering over it, and you get the point exactly where you want it, and then you drop the cursor, the stylus down, and when you drop it down, unless you are perfectly perpendicular to the tablet, whatever, the point ends up being off. So as you go down, it actually moves, and then your point is no longer on the edge, and you get really frustrated. So in my experience, a tablet is okay, but hands down, the best thing to do pen tool work with is a mouse. Because with a mouse, you can put the point exactly where you want it, and then you just click. You're not moving the mouse at all. You just click, and it will set the point perfectly for you. I'm actually going to work with my tablet on this one, but I'm just saying if you have a mouse, I can see, looks like Sophie's got a tricked out. No, I actually use a different, that's a Logitech, isn't it? Yeah, I have a version of it. It's not the upright version, it's down. I love it. I wouldn't ever work with anything else again. Anyway, so blah, blah. Okay, so pen tool. So if we go into our session 4 files, inside our session 4 files, there is a file at the very bottom of that called Viacom Path. If you can double click and open that up into Photoshop. If you get a warning, don't worry about it. The warning is a good thing because this is the file is actually in sRGB, and you should be getting a warning. If somebody opened this file and it just opened up in Photoshop and you did not get a warning, then you are not, you don't have Photoshop set up correctly, and you need to get in touch with me after this class to make sure we can get you set up correctly. So I'm going to actually outline this logo, the Viacom logo. If you don't see the Viacom, just make sure that you've got both of the eyeballs on both layers here on the side. So I'm going to zoom in to the V. Again, the easiest way to zoom in is to hold down the space bar and the command key. That will, no matter what tool you have selected, it will temporarily give you the plus magnifying glass. If you add the option key to that, you get the negative magnifying glass. This is how I zoom in and out all the time. I hate the fact that Photoshop has now changed that behavior in Camera Raw. Why would you have a keyboard shortcut in Photoshop that is different than the keyboard shortcut in Camera Raw? I do not know. And there's no way to actually reset either one of them so that they match each other. Anyway, if Adobe, if you're listening. Okay, the pen tool. If you take a look over at your tool palette and find the T key that looks like the letter T, the pen tool is the tool that's right above it. And if you click on it and hold down the corner, the lower right-hand corner, whatever, you will get a flyout menu. And you will see in the flyout menu that there is the pen tool, the freeform pen tool, the curvature pen tool, the add anchor point, the delete anchor point, and the convert point tool. You are not going to use anything but the pen tool. So I have already taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tools, and I've reduced it to 1. You are going to use the pen tool only. So click on that guy. You don't ever have to change that part again. We do need to change a couple of options up at the very top though. So again, anytime you select a tool, your eyeballs should go straight up to the options menu and see what's going on up in here. And the first thing you need to make sure is that in the drop-down menu up at the top that it says path and not shape. So if it says anything else other than path, click on the drop-down menu and select path. What the pen tool does is draw paths. And I'm from the South and I clearly have a problem saying that word. Don't make fun of me. As we go across the top, there are some icons that sit. There's three little icons that sit here that all have to do with pen depth and pen and path interaction. We are not going to use these right now. Just make sure that the one that's on the, just don't touch anything here. If we end up with a mistake, I'm going to show you what the mistake is and how to fix it, but it's easier not to screw with this stuff right now. However, there's a little gear that sits over here. If you click on the gear, you'll get a drop-down menu. And at the bottom of that drop-down menu, it has a place for a check mark for rubber band. You want to enable that. You can also control the thickness of your path. By default, it's a 1 pixel thickness. That's usually enough. If for some reason you have trouble seeing that, you can actually bump that up. Again, paths are non-printing characters, so even if you get something, it won't be as precise as a 1 pixel width, but if you can't see a 1 pixel width, then it's not going to do you any good. You might as well go to a 2 or whatever you need to actually get this done. But we typically want to stay with 1 pixel. And then the default color, if you click on the drop-down menu, you can pick from an arrangement of colors. The light blue is or the lightish blue is the one that it's the default one, it's the one I like the best. However, if you're actually working on an image that's very close to this color, you can't see the path. So at that point, you would actually, again, change it to more like a magenta, because the magenta will pop up off of a blue or a light blue really well, or pick a red, any of those colors, or yellow. You'll be able to see the path easier. Again, the color, whatever you set this up, is not going to have any impact on the image itself, because these are all non-printing characters. And then finally, the last thing to do is there is a check mark that says auto add and delete. You want to make sure that that is checked. Now, if you go back out to your Finder really quickly and take a look at, there is a PDF in your in this folder that says Pen Tool and Paths. If you click on that to just open it up, this is exactly the stuff that I'm going to show you how to do. So you will notice here, though, that the dialog boxes look a little bit older. There is no thickness adjustment in here. This path way of using paths came out of a Photoshop book that was for Photoshop 6, not Photoshop CS6, but Photoshop 6, which is circa 1990. Changed my life, changed a lot of people's lives. Nobody knows about this shit, and nobody knows about, well, not that nobody knows about it. Anybody who's gone through this class knows this method. But it's a very specific thing. If you have trouble, once you start doing this on your own for your homework and you can't remember how to do it, you can either watch the video that I'm recording right now, or you can refer to this PDF and it will walk you through all of the steps. I was thinking in here that it was actually going to, I might be able to get a date on this book. But anyway, so I just wanted to make everybody aware that that's there. This is exactly what I'm going to show you I drew from this book. So I'm going to show you how to do this tool first, just really a couple of quick selections part, and then I want everybody to do it with me, and we're going to go through parts of this, and we'll just take it from there. So hopefully you have a cursor that looks like an X, and you don't have a cursor that looks like a little pen. Does anybody have a cursor that looks like a little pen? If yours is not showing up, did you select the pen tool itself? And you make sure it says path, and then you hover over your image and you don't see anything? Click on the drop down on the side of that guy. The top is selected, that's right. Restart Photoshop. Oh, you have a little, looks like a pen? Okay. If we go back to how we set up our preferences in the very first class, come up to the Photoshop menu, down to Preferences. Again, if you're on Windows, it's the Edit menu, down to Preferences. Photoshop Preferences, and you want to come down to Cursors. And in Cursors, when it opens up, under Other Cursors, you want to select Precise, not Standard, and hit OK. And you'll be good to go. Okay, so the way we're going to use the pen tool to begin with are straight line segments. That's what the V is all about. So to use the tool, again, watch what I do first really quickly, and then I'm going to let you do it. It's pretty self-evident and pretty easy. I'm going to hover the intersection of that X right over the top point of the V. I'm going to click once, and it's not a drag, just click once. And then if you move your cursor away from that point, you will see this line extend out. This line is an aid to show you where your next point's actually going to be and what it's going to trace. That's what the rubber band thing is all about. If you turn off the rubber band, you do not get that line. The pen tool will still work, but the rubber band is an aid to show you exactly how the tool is going to work, what's really going to happen. So then I'm going to come down to the point of the V that's down at the very bottom, and I'm going to click again. Then I'm going to come up to the top corner of the V and click again. Then into the center point, and you guys get the whole idea, so everybody can start to actually do an outline of the V. Take your time and be precise about it, and you won't have to go back again. But look at my screen really quickly again, one more time, sorry. When you go back to the original point, the point where you started, to complete the path, as you hover over the point, the original point, and complete the path, your cursor will change to a little pin icon with a circle next to it. That's telling you that you've completed the path. And simply click, and this path is actually done. So I need everybody to outline the V. Is this working for everyone? No? Okay. All right. If you hover your cursor over your image still, you can see it's still the pen tool, but I want to move this because I'm going to go after the eye next, but I want that to be in the center of my screen. So again, if you simply hold down the space bar, it temporarily changes the pen tool to the hand, and you can click and move your image without actually doing any pen work at all. Let go of the space bar and you've got the pen tool again. This becomes important once we start doing pen paths that are much larger. You have to be able to move around your image while you're actually using the tool. And you can't do that if you don't use the spacebar trick. If you come up and you click on this another tool while you're in the middle of creating a path, it'll drop the path that you're actually trying to create, or it'll stop it at that point, and you'll have to pick it up again, which is a pain in the ass. right, click on the little gear and let me just see what's going on there. Yeah, that part's all right, good. Just hit Command Z to undo it. Okay, so come down here. Hit Command H. We need to hide all these guidelines. You don't need to see those things. And hit hide extras. That's the only time you'll see that. Okay, so come up to that corner and click once. Perfect. And click again. It works.
No, I'm at the space bar.
Oh, click on the space bar right now.
Yeah.
Click on it right now. No, click and hold it. You are right. Quit Photoshop and restart it.
Okay.
With the trackpad, if you use 2 fingers, you can just move it around. Like you can.
Oh, try the 2-finger swipe thing.
It's just
Thank
different
you.
here.
Thank you.
All right, did this work for everybody else? Okay, so you're on your own to get the I. It should be pretty self-evident, and the A as well. So again, just click. It doesn't matter what direction you go in. Take your time. There's a lot of people who do really lazy pen work to begin with because you can go back and readjust things, but in my opinion, that just complicates things and it takes more time. So once you get the I done, don't do the A yet. I just want to make sure that you get the V and the I done. Everybody good on that part? Okay. If you come over to your layers palette, you will see right next to it there's a tab that says path. If you click on the path, it'll actually give you what's going on right here. You can see I've got this thing that says work path, and you can see there's a V and an I outlined on it. Now again, I've suggested to everybody, I'm going to suggest again, that you need to make these things as big as you can because you can see an enormous amount of information that's actually in these. And everybody works with the default icons that Photoshop ships with, and they're too small to see anything. So if you click on the little 3 menu bars that are to the right of the Path tab, you'll get a flyout menu, come down to Panel Options, and click on the radio button next to the largest of the icons and say OK. And now you can actually see what you're doing here. So, but you will also notice that this says Work Path as well, and you'll also notice that this path is highlighted. If you click underneath the Work Path, it's no longer highlighted. If you come back up to the work path and click on it, it is highlighted. So the thing that you need to understand about work paths is they're temporary. And what I mean by temporary is this. If you come down and you click underneath this and then start to do the A. So I'm going to click on this corner right here to start to do the A, and you will notice it gets rid of the VI in the original work path because this work path is temporary. And now you're off to the races, but you've lost all of that work. To get back, you want to go to your history palette and simply go back 1 step in history where it says close path. And you will get this back. This is one of the biggest dangers about working with the pen tool is that work paths are temporary. You need to make them permanent. To do that, you have 2 options. The first one is you can simply double click on it and a window will open up saying, do you want to save this thing? And I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to type in VI because that's what's on it and say OK. Now you've got a path that actually says VI on it. If you click underneath this and then start to add the A, you will notice that A starts a brand new work path, again, temporary, but you did not lose the work in the VI path. That is now going, and if you save this file and close it, the VI will actually be saved with it. Work paths are temporary. They will be gone. So it's just to be aware of that. Get in the habit of saving your paths as you go along. Certainly save them before you do anything serious. Is this working for everyone? So, yes? No, I'm going to show you how to bring all this together. So I need everybody has saved their VI, right? And then started a brand new work path for the A, right? Okay, great. Go ahead and do the A. So now I've got the VI is on one path and I've got the A on this temporary work path as well. I'm going to click again underneath this so that nothing is selected, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on my work path to make it active, and you see the blue outline. If you click underneath it, if it's not selected, you don't see because the path isn't visible because you don't have this selected. However, with the work path now active, you'll see the VIs right there. You can cut and copy paths. So we are going to bring these two together. I'm going to do a copy first. So to do a copy, it's the same as anything you would cut and copy or copy and paste in Photoshop. Come up to the Edit menu and come down to Copy, or hit Command C, that's copy. Go up to your VI path, and then Command V to paste it. And it will actually put it'll put the A in with the VI. So you can copy these things and paste them. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that, and instead I'm going to select the work path again, and I'm going to cut it. I'm going to again come up to the Edit menu, down to Cut, or use the keyboard shortcut, Command X. You'll notice that the work path now goes away. Select your VI and hit Command V or paste, and it'll put it back in. So paths are copy and pastable. They're also duplicatable, if that's even a word. You can actually drag this path that's called VI right now. You can drag this down to the little square that's got the plus down at the bottom, and you can make a copy of it, just like you can do with layers, just like you can do with channels. You can also grab that copy that you just made and drag it down to the trash to get rid of it. Is this making sense to everyone? If you click on the VI now, we can actually continue to work on this. We will not get another temporary work path because we've actually made the VI we've actually selected it before we start our next part. So I'm going to go after the C right now. To do the C, you need to start. I'm going to just look up at my screen and watch how I do it, because this is going to be the whole trick to how you work with this tool, because it's all about curves. So when we think about the pen tool, the thing everybody struggles with are curved lines. But the truth of the matter is, it's what the pen tool does that's very best. So if you use this to actually draw your curved lines, it works out really well for you. Life's grand, and you just go on. So I'd watch my screen here really quickly, because I'm going to show you how I would start. I'm not going to start at this top edge right here. I'm going to start with the straight line section, because it's what we've been doing already. I'm going to click at the sort of enter part of the C. You can see on my screen where I am. I'm going to click there, and then I'm simply going to come up to the top corner, and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to click on that corner. So your next move is to actually draw the curve of this C. So to do this, there are people who will try to draw this entire arc in one fell swoop. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Do this in increments, and you'll be much more successful. It will go much faster for you. You'll be much happier in the end. Most people, if you think of this as a clock face, most people would come down here to 9 o'clock and try to do it here. I'm going to actually ask you to bite off a little bit less of a chunk. It's just a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to say you want to start around the 10:30 mark on our clock face, and here's the trick. So again, don't do this. Just let me talk you through how I'm going to do this. So what you want to do is, I'm going to click my mouse down, do not let go. Then you want to drag in the direction that you want your path to go. So I want my path to go all the way around this C. So I'm dragging in the direction that I want it to go. You do not want to drag back in the direction where you came from, because you will never get the line you're trying to get it to describe. You will notice as you click and you drag out, you will get 2 control handles. This is what fucks everybody up, is the multiple control handles. However, if I stay really close, if I have very short control handles, you'll see that when I do this moving back and forth, that it primarily shapes the path line very close to this point where I am. If I drag the line way out, I actually don't control the path really close to the point where I am. I start controlling it much stronger back at the original point, this point that's sitting right up here. So your job in this is to actually simply draw this out to find the arc that you are actually looking to describe. And there's no other way that I can say to do it except for to click, drag it out, and you'll maneuver it. You'll see what it takes to actually get this to describe that arc line. Stay with me, don't do anything yet. This is the trick. This is what changes the pen tool into something that you can actually use. This is the thing that this book taught me and that I've taught 1,000 people, and it will change everything. It will make the tool actually work for you. Let go of your mouse at this point. Come back to the center part where we just were. Hold down the Option key and click once. What will end up happening is that you get rid of the second control handle. And we are now starting from scratch, just as if this was one of the control points that we had up here, that we never did anything. The problem that people run into with doing path work like this is that if you keep both control handles, they both continue to control the next arc. And so if you do this, you eliminate that second handle, and it's like you were starting from scratch again. So again, don't do anything yet. I'm going to show you where I would go next. I'm going to come down to about the 8 o'clock version. Click, drag in the direction I want my path to go. Maneuver it so that it actually describes that arc. Let go, come back up to the center point, hold down the Option key and click. And finally, I'm going to do the last arc right here. And again, come back to this point, hold down the Option line and click. And now I don't need to do anything except put my next point up. Click and draw out that part to describe that arc. Hold down the Option key to get rid of it. Click and drag out to get this part described. Hold down the Option key and click to get rid of it. Finally, complete my path, but you can still draw this line out and you are done. So now I need everybody to do the C. And give me a shout if you're having a problem.
While do you take in 2 stops?
Again, you can do it in less, but things start to get unwieldy. So for instance, I'll show everybody when I get to the O. Let everybody get to this first. Baby steps is the answer to that. And Jim, obviously, Jim, if you know, if you do a lot of work with this stuff, you know stuff beyond this. And so you don't need, you can do what you always do.
How do you get the control handles?
Okay, I'm just going to undo this. Oh, okay, this is a great thing, Another point about all of this. There are ways that you can go back in and adjust points that you fucked up. There are ways that you can actually, if you're in the process of doing something and something fucks up, don't use any of those. If you make a mistake, go back in history. History is your best friend with the pen tool. Do not, if all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, look at that point, it's completely wrong, and you're 8 points further down the line, go back in history to get to the point where you do not try to undo. Again, I'm trying to simplify this tool as much as I possibly can because the complication is what throws everybody on this. So simply, for me, in my case right here, to explain something else, I'm just going to go back in history to the point where I picked it up here in the very beginning. All right. So this is the point where I'm going to start my first one. So you were asking, how do I get back to that point to get rid of it? So I'm going to...
No, how do you, like, I clicked the button, but then the control handles aren't coming out. Yeah.
You need to click, hold your mouse down, and drag.
Oh, okay.
So click, hold your mouse down, and drag in the direction that the path is going. And then come back to the center, let go. You're not dragging back to the center, let go of your mouse, come back and hover over the center point, hold down the Option key, and click.
I don't have it.
Yeah, see, well, you're zoomed in way too far.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, way too far. Come back out, even so you can see the whole C. Come back out a little more. Too much. Go back in a little bit. Right there, perfect. All right, so you're not holding any Option key, nothing right now. Click, keep your mouse down, drag in the direction that you're going, drag along the path. Drag along, yeah, right there. Good. And you'll see as you start to play it out. So come down a little further and then push it up a little bit. You'll see that that hole allows you to shape it. You're fine right there, perfect. Let go of your mouse, hover over the center point, hold down the Option key and click. That handle's now gone. Let go of the Option key, pick your next point, click and drag in the direction of the path.
Okay.
So you're going to click and drag in this direction. Drag, keep going, in the direction of the path, exactly. Yep, you're getting it. Is this working for everybody else? Who's struggling with this? Okay. All right, so that part looks pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then just hover over the center point here, hold down the Option key, and click. And let go. No, don't pull that out. Just click and let go. Okay, we're going to need to go back one step in history to make sure we didn't put another weird point in there, and we did. So come back and hover over the center part, hold down the Option key, and just click once. Let go of the Option key. Put your cursor down here now. You're going to go to your next point.
Okay.
Click and drag in the direction of the path. Yep, exactly, until you get it how you feel like it should be. Exactly, close, but and now it gets better.
Okay.
Come back and hover over the center point, hold on the Option key, and click. Again, it gets rid of the second handle. Let go of the Option key, come down to here, another point. Click and drag in the direction that you want the path to go.
Okay.
And you'll form it.
So you're only holding down when you're like.
When you're trying to drag these lines out.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then hover over the center, hold down the Option key. Yep, you got it.
Okay, thank you.
Is everybody else okay on this? Okay, let me finish mine really fast. Well, no, here, never mind. I'm not going to confuse this issue right now. So pretty much on this part alone, you should be able to actually do some effective pen work. But we're going to go to the O right now. And this part is, yes?
When I finish the circle, if I need to make some small adjustment.
We'll get to that in a second. Okay. So yeah, let's hold off on that. We're going to go. So going to the O right now, this is really critical that you think about this, and this can get to be challenging depending on the image that you're working on. You always want to start on the outside and work your way in. So you do not want to draw this circle that's in the middle of this first. You want to do the outline of it first, and then you want to do the inline of it, the second circle that's on the inside. It's not that you can't change that ordering, it's just that Photoshop, again, I'm trying to make this simple for you so that you don't have to go in to the icons that are at the top and change the stacking order of your path. So again, think about always working from the outside in, and that can be more confusing than it sounds. In the case of the O, it's pretty familiar. But I want to show you something else with the O. So again, look up at my screen. Don't do this yet, just look up at my screen. I'm going to start here at 12 o'clock. And I'm going to come and I'm going to, again, go to the same way I did the C. I'm going to come down to around the 10 o'clock line, whatever. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out and I'm going to let go. And this time I'm not going to go back and get rid of that point. This time I'm simply going to come down onto the O. If your curves are like perfectly round like this, you can cheat. You don't need to get rid of the second line. We can simply click on here and continue our work around this. So watch up my screen here really quickly. So I can continue to click and drag on this because I haven't changed that line, although now it's going to fuck up the one that's actually back behind it. So you know what I just said to you? I lied. I'm going to show it to you in another place. So I'm going to come back in. So you guys, you already know this trick. You can do the O for me. So go ahead and do the outside first. And once you get the outside done, you can go ahead and do the inside circle. Is this working for everyone? No. No, and if it's fucked up, go back in history. Again, don't go in right now and try to change shit. I'm going to show you how to change a couple of points in just a minute. But if it didn't work, go back in history to undo it and start over. Again, it's so much easier. Because you have to admit, right now, so far what we've done is you've got perfect circles, perfect outlines around straight line objects, that kind of stuff, whatever. You know, if you're really good about your pen work, you've mastered this tool already. This is as far as you need to go. I am going to show you how to go a little bit further, but I think you would all agree, especially those of you who have tried the pen tool and gotten really frustrated in the past, that this works a whole lot better. All right, are we good to go? All right, I'm going to go on to the M, but we're going to make a mistake in the M right now. So I'm going to start at the bottom corner, and I'm going to click and come up to the top, and I'm going to overshoot the mark. And I'm going to make it really obvious. So I've overshot the mark, and then I'm going to come down. I'm going to act like I didn't realize I was doing it. And you can do the same thing with me. Go ahead and make the big mistake. And I'm going to click in the center part of the M, and then I'm going to come up here to the top. Now, at the top, at this stage of the game, if you've realized you've made the mistake, again, your easiest method here is to simply go back in history to where it started again and just do it again. This is going to be faster, and then you're fixing it. But I'm, again, going to put the mistake back in there, and I'm going to show you how to fix this once we finish the path. So I'm going to just go ahead and complete the path. And it's not that big of a consequence now because of the M, but the M's a relatively simple shape to deal with. But if you get into a really complex path that you've spent, you know, an hour doing, you do not want to go back in history and undo it and do another hour. So all right, are we good? We got the M with the mistake in it. Okay, I'm going to click outside underneath the path again. Again, I want to deselect this guy. So I've just clicked outside the path, and then I'm going to click on the path itself, the layer path, to make it active again. And what you can see is that you've got paths on here, but you don't see any of those little points that we laid down. And we need to get to those little points to actually control them, but you don't see any of those right now. To get to those points, you use the tool. Don't ask me why they do it in this order, but if you look on your toolbar again, there is the T that's right underneath the pen tool that we've been working with. Underneath that is an arrow. If you click and you hold the drop-down menu, you will see that there's two arrows here. One is black and one is white. The black arrow tool is the path selection tool. The white arrow tool is the direct selection tool. We're going to start with the black one first. If you click on the black path, the black select arrow tool, and come over to your path and just click. It doesn't matter where you click on the path. You can click anywhere on it, and you will see that all of your points just got to be active again. Only on the M. You don't have any points on the O. It's just on the M. You can now move this path, but it will move the entirety of it. So if you click and drag, you can see you can move the path to a completely different location. If you've done that, hit Command Z to undo that. If you hold down your Shift key, you can click on the O outside path, and you will see that you get the little rings, the points show up on the outside path. If you hold down the Shift key still and click on the center one, you can actually get, now I've got the outside ring, the inside ring, and the M all selected, and you can click and move all of these guys as a group. Command Z to undo that. If you simply click outside, you don't have to click underneath this, but just click outside and away, it gets rid of all of those points right there. However, this doesn't do us a whole lot of good. What this will do is it will allow you to make selections of your path to copy. So I'm going to click on the M again. I'm going to come up to the Edit menu. I'm going to come down and do Copy. Then I'm going to come over to my path palette and the little menu that's on the far right hand side. If you click on that, you will get a flyout and you can say, I want a new path. And a new path will come open, a window will open and say, well, what do you want to call it? And I'm going to call it M and say, OK. And now underneath the M, you will actually, well, you'll notice that I've got a new path here. I've got to go back up to my top one and select the M to get the little dots around it. And now I'm going to, again, copy this and come back down to my M and do a paste, and it'll only put in the M. It'll only put in those points. Now, I don't need this M right now, so I'm going to throw it away. I need to fix this path. I need to fix that point. You do not use the black-headed arrow for that. You use the white one. So if you click on the flyout menu and come down to the Direct Selection tool, we can also come back over here and click on the path. And you'll notice when you click on the path right now, instead of having blue dots in here, you've got clear dots in here. These are clear. They're not white dots. They're actually showing you the background that's right here. So whatever will be on the background will actually be showing through. So you've got clear dots here. This would work exactly like the other selection tool worked. If we click on this path and drag to move it, I'm sorry, not the edge part of it, but the point on it, yep, never mind. You can click on a single point on this, and you will notice that that point becomes blue, and all of the others stay clear. Clear points are anchored. They do not move. Blue points actually do move, and you can now click and reposition this point down into its correct place. You can move multiple points. So let's say that you've missed 3 of these. You can hold down your Shift key, click on the point in the middle that now makes it blue, and then the point at the other top of the peak makes it blue. Now the points that are along the bottom are all anchored, but the ones that are on the top are not, and you can click and drag them up to reposition all 3 of them. So you can modify your path in shapes like this. Command Z to undo that. Does this all make sense, what's going on here? Where this becomes really important is when we talk about doing, I call it dovetailing. So we're going to use this path right now. How would we use this to actually, why have we gone to all this trouble to make this path part? Well, if you hover over the thumbnail of the Viacon path and hold down your Command key and click, it loads it as a selection, just like it does in the Channels palette, just like it does in the Layers palette. Again, hovering over the thumbnail, Command click, loads it as a selection. Come over to your Layers palette, select the Viacom so that you're on the top layer. Let's add a new blank layer by just clicking on the square with the plus in the middle. And then we can actually fill this with a color. So I'm going to click on my foreground color picker, and I'm going to make it a pure red. So I'm going to do 255R, 0 green, tab key to blue, 0 blue. Red is now my foreground color. Since it is my foreground color and I've got an active selection going, Option Delete will actually do a fill of foreground color. Command Delete, which in my case is black, will fill it with the background color, but I wanted to fill it with red, the foreground color. So Command Delete will actually, Option Delete is foreground color always. Command D to deselect. This is why you do the pen tool. Look at how solid this selection is. Try doing that with a paintbrush. or the lasso tool, or even the quick selection tool. Yes? I just selected the foreground color picker and then typed in a color. So I typed in 255 red. So click on it. It's already red, but anyway, click on it. You've got exactly that color in there. Say OK. So now you've got this layer selected. Hold down Option and hit Delete. Now this fills with foreground color.
Oh, okay.
If you hit Command Delete, it fills with background color, which is white. Go back to Option Delete, foreground color. And when I say delete, for people on Windows, it's backspace. JP.
How do you Command D or
Command D to deselect. Yes.
I missed this step. I went too fast.
OK, that's all right. That's all right. So click on here. We're going to add a layer just on top of that. So just click on the top layer to make it active. Click on Add Layer. Perfect. It's just a blank layer. You've got red is on there. So if you hold down Option and Delete, it fills your marching ants with the foreground color. If you hold down the Command key and hit Delete, it's background color. And then go right back to Option Delete, foreground color. And then Command D to deselect. So guys, remember that Option Delete and Command Delete or Control and Option Delete, whatever, or backspace, is always foreground, background color. And take a look at these. They're oriented exactly the way they would be. Your Option key is always to the left of your Control or Command key. They are oriented here on your keyboard exactly the way they are. So again, it's always the two keys right next to the space bar. So the key right next to the space bar plus delete is always going to be background color. The key Option Delete is always going to be the foreground color. If you hit the X key, you invert them. So now if I were to hit the X key and I wanted to fill with red, I would be doing Command or Control Delete, not Option, because I've flipped those colors. So it's always foreground, background. Hang on one second. I'm starting to work my way up. Hold on.
I was just gonna, what was the keyboard shortcut for select? Was it
To load the
Command?
selection?
Yeah.
Yeah, just go back into your path.
Great, actually.
Oh, sorry.
asking grandma?
That's okay. Go in your path palette, just hover over the thumbnail, hold down the Command key. It's always Command and click.
Oh, okay.
And now you got the marching ants. It's always Command click on the thumbnail, and you will load that as a selection.
You just made like. Okay.
Well, it's like because you're filling with white the whole time. It would be my guess. But first off, you need a selection. So hover over the thumbnail, hold down the Command key, and click. You've now got a selection going. Go to your layers palette. You're going to click on Viacom because we're going to put a blank layer on top. Add a blank layer to put it on top. Nope. Nope. You now got a blank layer. Click on your foreground color, which is black. Type in 255 red. Hit the tab key. It's just faster. 0. Tab key. 0. And say, OK, it's red. Now, because this is the foreground color, you've got an active selection going. Hold down Option and Delete, and it will fill it with your foreground color. If you hold down Command Delete, it fills with the background color. But go back, you want a foreground color. I mean, no, Option. Again, these two are always oriented exactly like this. Background is always the closest to the space bar. Foreground is always the one next to it.
Well, I can't just do X.
You could do X, but then it just flips them. Now Command Delete will actually do it.
Command delete. Okay.
Is this working for everybody? Are we good on this part? Okay, dovetailing. This is the tricky part of it all. So we're going to go back to our path palette. We are going to, you can actually, I'm going to just say, let's do a new path first. So I'm going to click on my drop-down menu and say create a new path, and I'm going to call it M dovetail. And say OK to that. And then I'm going to grab the black arrow, which is the path selection tool. Come back up to your Viacom path to make it active, and I'm going to select just the M. And you see you get all the little points around it. We all good? No?
Oh, you said select.
None of this stuff.
Oh.
Go over to your path palette. You're fine here. You've named that M dovetail. No, select the top path. Then it's the black arrow. which you
Right,
got
oh,
selected.
Okay.
Click on the M. No, click, yeah, you see it, you do. Yeah, you got it, you're good. Okay, we're gonna copy this path. So again, Command C, or just up to the edit menu to copy it. Come down to your M dovetail and do Command V or edit menu to paste to put a copy of the M down on the bottom. I'm also going to turn off the eyeball for the red layer so that we don't see that, so you can really see this path work a little bit. It's just a little bit easier to see. So what I mean by dovetail, what I want to do is I want to, if you consider the two V shapes in here as female, I want to create the male part that would perfectly fit this. The problem that I've got, nobody in the world is good enough to actually start with a completely brand new path and draw these lines out and have them fit perfectly. It's just not possible to do. You guys instinctively have to know that, right? What is the likelihood that all those points that you hit are going to be identical? Slim to non-existent. So instead, you can edit the path to actually keep those points and start a new one. So to do that, you go back to your white arrow, the direct selection tool, and I'm simply going to click on the top, the top point that's at the very top of the V. And you see that the other points just went white, meaning that they are anchored and not going to be affected, but that point that is active and showing blue can be affected. And I'm just going to hit the delete key, and it's now gone. That whole section is now gone. I've completely opened up the path from this point down at the bottom to the point that's actually in the middle. You can get rid of multiple points, so you can actually select the one that's now in the crux and that's just down in the bottom of the V, hold down your Shift key and click the one that's on the top and hit the delete key, and you get rid of all of that. If you've done that, hit Command Z to undo it. You can also click and drag. So I'm going to click outside of this. I've still got the white arrow tool selected. I'm going to click and drag across what would be the middle point and the top. I don't want to touch these ones on the bottom, but I can go for those guys, and you will see that these 2 points are now selected and the rest are still white, meaning they are anchored, and hit the backspace key or the delete key and they are now gone. Finally, to start my path again, to actually finish the dovetail shape, because I've now got the common points here. They're exactly based on the ones that I had before. So I'm simply going to click on the pen tool. I'm going to come over and click. It doesn't matter what corner I start at. I'm just going to click here in the bottom to pick up the path again. And then I'm just going to do some other shape down on the bottom. It's just a V or whatever. It doesn't matter what you do. And I'm going to click here. This is now a dovetail that will actually fit perfectly. To see what that looks like, hover over the thumbnail, hold down the Command key, and click. It will load that as a selection. Go back into your layers palette. We are going to create another new layer on top of the Viacom one, just a blank one, by clicking on the little square with the plus in the middle. I'm going to click on my foreground color to get a different color. I'm going to go with a green. So I'm going to leave it 0 red, 255 green, 0 blue, and say OK. Because green is now my foreground color, Option Delete fills it, Command D to deselect, and then turn on the Viacom, and you can see that it fits perfectly. Because you based your second path on the original. Did you get to the dovetail actually made? Did you finish that path? Yeah. You got rid of the points and finished the path, right?
I don't have this part.
Okay, all right, hang on. Okay, so this is where you should be, right, Alex? Does anybody need to go further back than this? Okay, hang on. Do you have the copy of the M in the bottom? Yeah. Okay, great. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of this point up here, this point here, this point up here. Those are the 3 that I need to get rid of. I need to keep the ones that are at the bottom. So to get rid of the points that are at the top, I'm going to again select the direct selection, the white arrow. I'm going to just click on the top one. You can click and drag, or just click on the top one. You see it stays blue, everybody else is white. Hold down your shift key and click the one in the middle. It turns blue, everybody else is white. Click on the one at the very top. It's blue now, everybody else is white. And then just hit delete. It gets rid of those points and it leaves the ones on the bottom. Did that work? We good? Everybody good on this? Hit the pen tool again. Just grab the pen tool. We don't need to change anything. Hover over the point. I'm just hovering over the one on the left-hand side. You could hover over the one on the right-hand side. It doesn't matter where you started again. I'm going to hover the one on the left-hand side. Click on it, and you've got another. You've just picked up the path. I'm going to come down and do some other weird shape down at the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect. Come over to the point that's on the far right-hand side. You get the little icon showing you that you're completing the path. Click on it, and you've now got a complete dovetail of this. To use it, hover over the thumbnail, hold down the command key, and click. It loads it as a selection. Are we all good? Back to your layers palette. Add a new blank layer on top of Viacom by just clicking on the Add New Layer icon at the bottom, the square with the plus in it. I just wanted a different color so that you could see it. So I'm going to click on my foreground color picker. I'm going to type in 0 red, 255 green, 0 blue. That gives me a pure green. I'll say OK. I've got the marching ants, a selection on a blank layer on the top. Green is my foreground color. Option delete fills it. If you can't remember the option delete and the command delete, you can always come up to the edit menu and come down and do fill. And then in the drop down menu, pick either the foreground color or the background color and keep it at normal blending mode, 100% opacity, and it'll do the exact same thing. Then turn on hit Command D to deselect and turn on Viacom, and you can see it's a perfect fit. Are we good on this part? Okay. You can close this up. You do not need to save this. We're actually going to work on your last part. We're in good shape here time-wise. So the last part is how do we do this in a practical application. And the practical application of this is going to be, go back to your session 4 assignments. Not assignments, just the session 4 folder. This is not in the assignment folder. It's outside of the assignment folder. There's a file in there called M_7027_02191. You see, it's just a raw file. And double click on that to open it up. It'll open up in Camera Raw. I'm going to uncheck the highlight warning on this, and I'm just going to open this as an object. We can do all this work as a smart object. So I'm going to simply open this guy up. And I'm going to double click on the hand to get it as big as it can go. So I have 2 challenges here. The first challenge is going to be the body, the figure with the leather jacket and everything else. So a lot of people would look at this and say, oh yeah, select subject, or oh yeah, the quick selection tool, or oh yeah, whatever. This is a perfect candidate for the pen tool. If you are frustrated trying to make these selections, this is why. And again, most people, when they first start to do their pen work, would look at this and say, there's no fucking way. I am not doing this with the pen tool. Not a chance. I'm telling you right now, bite the bullet. Spend the next 3 weeks learning the pen tool. You'll never go back. It's just immediate. You're there. You're done. You're not screwing around with it. It's just done. And that's what your work should be all about. Again, everybody's seduced in thinking they can do all of this with a paintbrush. And you just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it's frustrating. And 2 hours later, you still don't have the selection. And if you had just done, I know I'm saying exactly what I said before. I sound like my wife. No, did I just say that? Oh God, I did. And it's Valentine's Day. I'm gonna burn in Valentine's Day hell. I know. I got to be honest with you, though. The likelihood that my wife would sit through one of these is slim to non-existent. She's a good editor, though. She's a really good editor, but oh, no. Anyway, so back to this. So anyway, just accept the pen tool as your friend. So I'm going to show you a couple things we need to talk about this. The first is we're going to go ahead and hit the pen tool. The shortcut for the pen tool is just the P key, pretty obvious, but if you want to know that shortcut, that's just one I can throw at you. So I've got the pen tool right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a selection of her entire body. I am not going to do a selection of her hair because you can't do that with the pen tool. We're going to do that using luminosity, but I'm actually going to make a selection of her whole body using the pen tool. However, the problem that we run into is if I take the pen tool and I bring it down to the very edge where the, so I'm going to come up the left side and go down the right side. That's just how I'm going to do it. As I start to come up this left side, whatever right here, to actually get to what I think is the bottom edge of this, by the time I get it actually down, my cursor is no longer the pen tool, it becomes the cursor because I've gone outside of the image. And I can tell you right now, guys, there's no way of hitting this other than the trick I'm going to show you right now. To actually work on this image, you want to work on what they call the pasteboard. We've visited the pasteboard once before, but we're going to go there again. To get to it, you hit the F key. It'll actually put your image onto a gray screen right now. Again, if you hold down the space bar, you'll get the hand, or if you're not getting the hand to do this, on the Macintosh, it's a 2-finger swipe on your trackpad. But you can move the image up. But now if you actually bring your pen tool all the way out onto the pasteboard, you can actually lay points on the pasteboard. So I know that I can actually bring this up and hit that first point perfectly. So there's a number of things that I want to show you about this really quick. So just watch my screen and then we are all going to go after this. So I am going to zoom in. So there's a lot of people that tell you that the less you zoom in, the faster your pen work goes. However, the less you move in, the less precise your pen work actually is. So it's a compromise. And I just, for me, I get familiar with a scope that I'm in. And so for me, this is the scale that I'm going to work in. And I think I can do really good, significant pen work here. But this is the most, not the most important, but this is a really critical aspect of the pen tool. So what I want to do is I want to separate the girl from the background. That's going to be my goal in all of this. So here's the two options that I've got. Just again, watch my screen here really quickly. I'm going to zoom in just to do this tight. The first one is that I'm going to actually, the ideal would be for you to hit the edge perfectly. But if you have to make a mistake, it makes a difference where you make the mistake, which side of this line that you go on. So watch this really quickly. I'm going to start to work and I'm going to actually make a mistake by cutting off a good part of her dress. So you can see I'm on the inside line right here. I'm going to come all the way back around. You can see again, I can put points down on the pasteboard itself and I'm going to just go ahead and complete my path tool right here. I am going to then load this as a selection, Command click to load it, and I'm going to come back to my path palette right here and I'm going to put it on as a layer mask. Can you tell that I made a mistake and that I'm on the inside of that skirt and not exactly on the line where the skirt would be? No, you can't tell. I've sacrificed part of the skirt, but you don't know that. You have no clue. I'm going to go back in history to undo all of that. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. This time I'm going to go on the outside. I'm going to make my mistake along the outside. And again, go back around. Command click to load that as a selection. Come back to my layer and add it as a layer mask. Can you tell I've made a mistake? If you have to make a mistake, sacrifice what you're trying to keep. Get rid of the skirt. Don't keep the background. Make sense? But my other suggestion is that you should just be perfect about it. So I'm going to get rid of the mask, if I can, and show you this is how I would actually go about doing it. I've got a work path that's sitting right here. The guy is still on there. You can actually, again, simply get rid of the work path. And I'm going to start again. However, I want to show you two things about this. The first is, well, here, I'll show you when I get there. So just bear with me really quickly, and this is the next thing I'm going to show you. This is what I was trying to show you earlier. I'm actually going to start down here on the paste board and just put a point down. You don't need to worry about your points that are outside of the paste bar, that are outside onto the paste board, but it'll actually give you a easier target to hit so that I know I'm right on this point. I'm going to click, and I've got a point right here, and it looks like this is a straight edge skirt. It doesn't matter even if it is straight edge. You need to put some organic bend in it. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to, even though this is straight, it's drawing right along that line, I'm going to click, I'm going to pull out a couple of handles, and I'm just going to pop it over a little bit. It's just that it puts in enough bend and shape in it to make this look organic, as opposed to it looking like these straight line segments that you've laid out all the way along the skirt. And it doesn't take much. Does that sort of make sense? The other thing is that you'll notice that I've got my two handles are come out. I'm not going to change, I'm not going to go back and click on the center point and hold down the Option key to get rid of that second handle. Because my path, the handle that I was just dragging out, is following along this line, I can simply go to the next point and continue to click and drag out. So I'm going to click here and drag out, hold down the space bar, get more distance in here, click and drag out, put a small little bend in here. I can do this all the way up until I run into something where I really need to actually make a change, and that's going to happen right when I get up here to this fingertip. So I'm going to click and drag out to put a little shape in here. A lot of people make the mistake now of actually then continuing along the skirt and trying to get rid of this background right here. This is just like the O that we did. This would be going to an inside selection here. You do not want to do that. You want to stay on the outside, do the entire exterior of this whole body, and then come back. And this is a separate path that goes on the inside, just like the center of the O was. Remember I said to you, you need to do the entire exterior of the body first, and then come and do your inside parts. This is a perfect example of it. If you continued this line and came back down here, the path would collide into itself again, and you would never be able to complete it. Does that make sense to everyone? Did I lose anyone on that? All right, so I'm down here at this point right now. Now, at this stage of the game, I'm not continuing the line up along her skirt. I actually need to change in a complete new direction. So I hover over the center point, hold down the Option key, and click to get rid of that point and start another version of a pin line right here, just like we've been doing with the whole Viacom thing. However, I'm going to get to this point right here, and you can see a lot of people would say, well, that split between her fingers is a perfect V, like the point that we used in the M on the Viacom. It is not. It is got, if you take a look at your fingers, that is not a perfect point here. There's a small arc that's in that. To get that small arc, which is what you want, I'm going to simply come to the other side. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this better. This is my point right now. I'm going to come to this other side over here. I'm going to click and I'm going to pull out an arc that'll actually go back down into the middle. Now you can also tell that this image has got a little bit of blurriness in it, all that kind of stuff. That's fine. There's motion in it. There's depth of field in it. Again, as long as I'm actually staying close to the edge and sacrificing, or not, and I'm sacrificing part of the hand, but I'm not picking up the background, I'll be fine. Now, personally, I feel like this is point that I put down here is too far away. So I could, again, go back, click on the white point here, click on this point, shove it back in. I don't do that. Simply go back in history and do the correct point. Put it in the right spot. You'll be a whole lot better off. I'm going to continue to work out here, and you can see coming all the way out here, I don't need to get rid of those points. Once I get to this stage of the game to do the fingertip, though, I do. I'm going to hold down the Option key and click to get rid of it, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to do the tip of her finger. I'm going to click to get rid of that point, and then again come down in here, simply come over to the other side to get that curved shape in there. You guys get where this is going, correct? When you get to little things like this bump out of her thumbnail, a lot of people are tempted just to lop that guy off. That's why their path work looks so shitty. It's all the little details that make this work well. The last thing I'm going to show you again is back on the board right here. It's where to put your points. Thinking about where to put your points. And this is the thing that always goes on in my mind. And then I'm going to get you guys to actually do this, and I'm going to do it with you. I'm always thinking of hills and valleys, hills and valleys, hills and valleys, hills and valleys. It's what's always going on in my mind when I'm doing path work like this. And what that means is that you need to leverage the pen tool to do the curves. Let the tool do what it does best, and it does curves the best. And what that means is that I'm going to put a point here and another point here so that the tool describes the curve. You do not want to put a point here and another point here, because then you've only got half the curve, and then you've got to do the other half of the curve, and this is wrong. Let the tool do it. And it's the same thing on the bottom side. Point here, so that the tool does the curve. Then the straight line segment is relatively simple to do. So it's always looking for hills and valleys, and you're always looking for the sides of the hills, the sides of the valley. Make sense? It'll just, you can see me doing it on this right here. This is exactly what I was doing on here. You can see that I set the points for the fingertips right on the sides of it, and then let the tool describe the entire tip of the finger. The very same thing is going to happen right here when I go to do this next one. The very same thing happened when I did the space that's actually between the fingers. Make sense? So I need you guys to outline this figure with the pen tool. One last thing I want to show you really quick. When you get to where the hair touches the collar, so when you get to this point right here, come on. When you get to this, I can't even zoom in. My Photoshop is locked up. I've got to actually restart my Photoshop, which I'll do, and I'll catch up. But when you get to this part right here, where the hair is actually touching the collar, you need to stop. And we are just going to go straight across the body to the other side, where the hair is also touching the collar, and start to work our way down. Avoid the head altogether. Make sense? All right, so you guys need to start doing this, and So take a look at my screen really quickly. You can see I've actually gotten up to that point of the hair on that side, and then I'm just going to come over here to the other side and just pick it right up again just below where the hair is touching the collar and start to work your way back down the other side. So look at my screen again really quick. I've gotten down to the sleeve that's on the other side. And again, I can lay points all the way out onto the pasteboard. I don't need to be right on the edge of that, so I can come back out here if I feel like that's going to be my best shot. Actually, I feel like it's a little aggressive on that, but I can put a point out here right now. And then I'm going to come back down because I want to attack the bottom side of her arm from below. So I can actually just set points out anywhere on the pasteboard and then click and work my way back in. Photoshop will know how to get rid of the points on the outside. And once you complete your path, remember this is now a work path. You need to double click on it and save it. I'm just going to call it body. Not be a bad idea to save your work at this time as well. Overall. Also remember there's that space right by her hand that's now an inside path. Don't forget to go after it. So is everybody at least up the left-hand side? Okay, because we need to move on. There's more to do here, but I don't want to screw you up. You continue to work on this, but if you can, simply go over to the, the right-hand side, go out to the pasteboard and finish off so that you've got one good edge that you can actually work and play with. This is not going to be part of your homework, so turning this in is not going to matter. But I want to make sure that we get to everything else about this image and how to knock it out. Are we good to move on? Just bring your path straight over here to the pasteboard and just finish it up so that you've got one good edge that you can see how well it works. All right, good. Okay, so I've now double-clicked on the path, so it's no longer work path, and named it body. Again, that's critical so that we don't lose our work here. I'm going to load this as a selection right now, and the easiest way to do that is to hover over the body thumbnail, hold down the command key, and click, and it just loads it as a selection. And I'm going to save this selection. I'm going to come up to the select menu, and I'm going to come down to save selection, and I'm just going to call it body. And say OK. And hit Command D to deselect. However, if I now come down to the body channel that I just built and I click on it and go in and zoom and take a look at it, you will see that it is perfectly sharp. That does not exist in photography. This edge is way too sharp. In some bizarre, perverse way, the tool has done too good of a job. It's made it look slightly cut out. I don't want that to happen. I need a softer edge, especially because the edge that is in the image is slightly soft. There's a little bit of motion in it, a little bit of blur, depth of field, whatever it is that's something in there. I need to reproduce that. If I keep this edge this sharp, it will look like I went in there and cut it out with a utility knife. That's not what I want to do. So I'm going to go back up to the top. Select the RGB channel. I'm going to come back over to my body again. I'm going to hold down the command key. I'm going to load this as a selection. And I'm going to come up to the select menu, and I'm going to come down to modify, down to feather. And what this will do is it will blur that edge slightly. Yes? Yep. Hang on one second. So if you got the, all right, here, start from the very beginning. So hover over the thumbnail of your path. Hold down the command key and click to load it as a selection. You see a pattern going on here, right? Have we only done this command click to load a selection like 1,000 times today so far? Eventually, it just becomes second nature, don't worry. Come up to the select menu, down to modify. We're going to modify this selection. I need to soften it. That is feathering. So if you come down and you say feather, and I'm going to put in a 2-pixel feather. We'll see what it looks like. So I'm going to hit 2 pixels, and I'm going to say OK to that, and then I'm going to save that selection. So up to the select menu, down to save selection, and I'm going to call it body soft or body feathered. And you could even put in 2 so that you know it was 2 pixels. PX. And say OK to that. Command D to deselect, and then let's go look at it. So if you take a look at the body with the 2-pixel, you can see that there's a little bit of softness on this edge. If you go back to the regular body, you can see it's perfectly sharp. If you zoom in, you can really see it. So back to feathered, slightly softer, and I feel like that part's about right. It looks about right to me. There's another trick that you can use to sort of preview this, because nobody really knows how much it is. Never mind, I'm not going to go there. We don't have time for that part. But it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. We'll look at previews later because we do this throughout this whole class. So this is the body part of it, and this part's going to work out well for me. What I need to do now, though, is do the hair. The hair. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to select on my RGB channel. I'm going to double-click the hand, and I'm going to zoom in to her head. And I'm going to create the same way we created the separation of the hair, the Fantasia hair last week, by duplicating a channel and running levels on it. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. So I don't care about her body anymore. I've already got that selection. What I care about is separating her hair from this background. So I'm looking for the channel that gives me the greatest contrast between her hair and the background. So I'm going to click on the red channel, and I can see that the background, especially the buildings that are at the top, are a little bit lighter. I'm hoping that I have better separation. The ones that are on the bottom is pretty good. But anyway, I'm going to click on the red channel. Then I'm going to click on the green channel, and the green channel keeps the hair stays just as light, but the entire background got darker. So the green channel is better for me right now. And then I'm going to click on the blue channel last. And the blue channel does not help me at all. The blue channel actually opens up stuff that isn't opened up. You can see the mullions between the window, the styles between the windows, whatever, actually got lighter in the blue layer than they actually are in the green layer. So for me, the green layer has got the greatest amount of contrast, and that's what I'm going to go for. So I'm going to duplicate the green layer. Simply grab the green layer, drag it down to the bottom of the channels palette onto the icon that's the square with the little plus in the middle. I'm going to double click it and just made a green copy. You can see it's sitting underneath my body alpha selections or alpha channels. I'm going to double click on the green thing, and I'm going to call this hair knockout. I don't want anything else because this is all it's about is just the hair. So hair knockout. And then I'm going to zoom into this, and I'm going to look for my trouble spots. Now there's this triangle thing that's shooting out of the top of her head. I'm not going to worry about that. If I have to sacrifice all the hair in that area, that'll be fine. I'm not going to worry about that. What I'm looking for, though, is highlight in her hair and separation in the background. And so I'm going to go right here at the back of her head. Take a look at my screen. You can see what I'm really looking to actually go after. There is part of the window that's on the outside of her hair right there, and then there's her actual hair. Those look to be the closest to me. So that's that's going to be my target, is to go after that. So I am going to grab the color sampler tool. Again, it's the tool in the eyedropper set, but it's the third one down. And I'm going to select right here on her hair to put down a sample, and I'm going to do the same thing on the background behind her. Now I've got my sample set to 5 by 5, and that might be a little too big. I might, in the second sample point that I put down, that actually might be grabbing some of her hair. So I'm going to change my sample size to 3 by 3. Again, you never want to use point sample. So I've got a readout that's sitting right down here, my point number 1 and my point number 2. They're in my info palette. They're giving me readouts in K. I don't like K. I don't want to use K. I want to use RGB readouts. So I'm going to click on the little eyedropper number 1. Actually, the eyedropper in there, I get a drop-down menu, and I'm going to say, show me this readout in RGB color. It doesn't change anything to RGB. It just changes the readout to give me those values. And I'm going to do the same thing with the eyedropper for number 2. Click on the drop-down menu, come down to RGB color. And now I've got my targets here. I need this target hair. My hair ended up being 239, 239, 239. You should be close to that. My background ended up being 84, so you should be close to that as well. So then I'm going to actually run levels on this. Command L to bring up the levels dialog box. Again, watching the readout of my hair, my point number 1, I know I need those 239s to reach 255. So I'm going to grab my white point slider, the point that's at the right under the histogram, the white point that's all the way to the right side. I'm going to click and start to drag towards the middle. And I want to stop when I get close to 253, 254. So you don't want to go all the way to 255 because you can go way too far. Then I'm going to go to my arrow keys, and I'm simply going to tap in the minimum number of arrow taps to get to 255 and not one tap more. I'm going to do the same thing now for my shadow point. It's reading 90s now. I'm going to click on the shadow point, the dark point that's right underneath the histogram on the far left-hand side, start to drag it towards the center and watch my readout, my after readout, and I'm waiting for it to get to, around a 3 or a 4. A 2 is fine right here. Stop dragging. Go to your arrow keys. If you tap in an arrow key and it goes in the wrong direction, like mine just went to a 3, it's because you're using the wrong up or down key. Just use the other one and tap it in until I just get to 0. Before you say, okay, look what has happened. My white point slider has actually come down. It's no longer at 255. Because I made that black point adjustment, it's actually pulled down that point. So I'm going to select my white point slider again, and then go to the arrow keys again, and type in till I get to 255. I'm going to recheck my second point and make sure that that change didn't change my zeros. It didn't. I've got the minimal amount of correction here that I need for my white point to be 255 and my black to be zeros. Before you say OK to this, you want to use your preview check mark in this to turn it on and off and see what hair you're actually sacrificing. Now, when I look at this, there's one curve in her hair that's right here, right by my point number 2, my point number 2, that's falling apart. But you would never know that. You would never know that that's a piece that's actually connected. It just looks like two flyaway pieces of hair. I'm keeping a lot of other beautiful little flyaway hair part in here. So this thing is actually working well for me, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now I need to modify, I need to fix the rest of this. I need to get her face in here. I've also got some janky stuff that's happening in the back. At this stage of the game, I am going to go to my tablet, if you have one. If you don't have one, you can certainly continue to do this with a mouse or a trackpad. And I'm going to hit the B key to get a brush. When I get to the brush, I'm actually going to do my drop-down menu. I'm going to make this a medium hard brush because I'm going to start to do work that's actually near parts of this. I don't want a whole lot of overspray in here, but this area that's really close to her head, especially that triangle, yes.
I have the precise cursor, but I don't have the circle drawing.
This circle, it's just too big. Your brush is too big. Make your brush smaller. It's probably a giant brush. The outline is probably outside the frame.
I don't have it anywhere.
If your caps lock is on in there.
No,
So how big is your brush?
it's 50.
Save your file, quit Photoshop, and restart. Anyway, so I'm going to make my brush smaller using the bracket keys right next to the P key. I'm going to hit the D key to make sure that my foreground and background colors are defaulted to black and white, because sometimes you can have a light gray and a dark black. I mean a dark gray. You don't really have black and white. We want black and white in this to work on this mask. And I'm going to hit the X key to start with black, because I want to get rid of this thing that looks like a dog bone right next to her face, or right next to the top of her hair. So I'm simply going to click and drag down to get rid of that. I'm going to tap lightly next to that little hair right there, make sure I get rid of that. I'm going to actually go into the area that's up near, there's a part of the window that's up around her. We don't need to clean all of this stuff around her, but I do want to make sure that stuff that's nearby I can get rid of. Now I'm going to go after this triangle that's above her head. So if I just hit this with black like this, it just takes it all out, and that's not what I want to do. I'm going to Command Z to undo that. Instead, I'm going to change my blending mode of this from normal down to overlay. Remember, overlay is a contrast brush. So hopefully that'll help keep me somewhere in here. But I'm also going to drop the opacity of this. I'm going to bring it down to around a 30 or 40. So I'm sort of like not an all or nothing in here. And then I'm going to come down onto this triangle, and I'm simply going to click and pull away from her head. And I'm going to continue to repeat that, trying to get rid of as much of that, but not lose any more of the hair than I need to lose. I don't really like what I've just done here, and it's because my brush is too soft. You can see it's done a lot of overspray into her hair. So I'm going to go back in history to undo all of that. I'm going to harden up my brush some. So I'm going to take the hardness and I'm going to bring it up to around an 80, 85, somewhere in there. And I'm going to do the process all over again. I'm making my brush a little bit smaller too. And just continue to hit that part out in there a little bit more. Oh, actually, again, that changed my brush back to a normal blending mode. So I'm going to go back one more time, make sure it's an overlay brush at that 82% hardness. And try this one last time. Yeah, and I'm feeling better about that. Now, if I orphan these little tips of hair out here, that's not a big deal. I simply am going to get rid of them. Like these telltale signs that you can see, these couple of little hair tips, just get rid of them. Go back to a normal brush. Take your opacity all the way back up again and just get rid of those two guys, those three guys. Nobody will ever know they're gone. I'm checking a look around the rest of this. The rest of this seems pretty good. Now I need to do the white on the inside of her hair. So I'm going to hit the X key, change again my brush to overlay to make sure that I'm not going to spray out that I'm going to try to protect these darker areas. Now in this case, I'm not going to go to this feathery hair out here and try to get it all cleaned up. I'm simply going to go for the areas that are on the inside. I need to keep some of that transition in there, and I'm fine with the way it is going right now. So I'm just cleaning up these areas that I know are going to be difficult to get to otherwise. I'm going to go around the top of her head. And again, where her bangs are, stay away from the edge. Do not go after those edges. You've got the levels that we ran on here are going to do their work. I've got a really hard transition right here that I don't like. If you take a look at my screen, it's this little hair transition. I'm going to soften my brush up here just to soften that edge up just a little bit right there. So I'm just going to pop this back just a little bit. Again, I'm staying away from that edge. I'm letting some of that background spill through. Now I'm back to her nose. That all needs to be overlay. Her upper lip all needs to be overlay. Her lips need to be overlay. And then once I get down to her chin, this part's all fine. I'm going to zip back out now. I've got an outline here that's everything that I need it to be, including her collar right here. So now I can simply go to a normal brush. I can make this 100% hard brush so I'm certain I get no overspray anywhere else. And I can just start working on this area to get in all the rest of this. Again, stay away from those edges. At this point now, I've got a really good solid edge that I can see in here. I don't need to worry about that. So to go faster, instead of painting all this, I'm going to hit the L key to get my lasso tool, and I'm simply going to, I've got the polygonal lasso tool selected. Hang on one second. I'm going to go to my regular lasso tool, and I'm just going to select, again, stay away from those edges, but I'm just going to select this big part right here that is her head, the inside of her head. White is my foreground color, so Option Delete will fill that with white, Command D to deselect, and this is all I need to do. How are you guys doing? I have 3 minutes to pull this off. Okay. I'm going to double click the hand. So the trick here now is I need to add this head to the body. So if I control, just to watch this now, because I'm going to go quick now. So take a pause. You can certainly stay here after class is over, but I want to make sure if anybody's got to leave that they see the end of this at least. I'm going to Command click to load this as a selection. So I'm just going to hit Command click. It's loaded it as a selection. This is a luminosity selection. I'm going to go to my layers palette, and I'm just going to add a blank layer on top of this just so that you can see what's going on here. This is my selection, the active selection that I've got going. Green is my foreground color. It doesn't matter. I'm going to hit a brush. I'm going to make it larger brush. It's a normal brush, 100% opacity, 100% flow. You don't need to worry about the edge because the selection is going to control where it goes. And look what happens when I paint this. It is controlling where the paint actually gets laid down. The marching ants are protecting the area that was black in my image and allowing the ink to go down where it's white in my image. If I hit Command D to deselect, you can see how fine that painting really is. So I'm going to throw this away. I just wanted everybody to understand that that's how selections work. I'm going to Command click to load the hair knockout again. Then I'm going to go to my body feathered, and what I need to do is paint this part in. So I'm simply going, white is my foreground color. I'm simply going to paint around this. It's actually painting in all of the hair. I've got a small little anomaly right down in here where my pen tool was short, but it doesn't matter. I've got the edge that I needed of the hair. Command D to deselect. Make your brush considerably smaller and just pop out that little part. And now we have got the perfect body mask. Does this make sense to everyone, what I just did? So let's see how we can use it. And did it work? How effective is this? So I'm going to throw away my hair knockout. It's done its job. I'm all about keeping tidy here. I'm going to Command click to actually load this feathered selection, the full body mask. I'm going to come over to my image right now and turn it on, and you see that you get this red around it. That's because I've got the eyeball of this actually on, so I'm going to turn the eyeball off, and I'm going to add a black and white layer onto this. And you can see that it makes the girl black and white. Well, that's not what I really wanted. I'm going to invert this selection, and I'm going to make the background black and white. And all of a sudden, she's leapt up off the page. I'm going to then load this new selection, the inverted one. Again, I'm just going to hover over this mask. Command-click to load that as a selection again. I'm now going to add a curve on top of this. It already puts the mask on the curve, and I'm simply going to change the blending mode of this curve from normal to multiply. It makes it considerably darker. The girl now has popped off of this. Look at the quality of this selection. Are you fucking kidding me? Look at this. Look at the edge, this path. That's the path edge that I drew. It's flawless. Look at this. Even the hand, the softest and the blurry part, look at that. Are you kidding me? Pen tool is your best friend. Are we good on this part? All right, well, that's it for the class part. Are there any questions about this? Are you guys amazed that I hit this almost to the 50-minute mark every class? I am. Are we good? Okay, so the assignments is really evident. You don't need any explanation. If you do, just send me an email, but it's really evident. You're going to be doing pen work for this assignment. And other than that, I'll see you next week. JP, we should try to, did you guys get that uninstalled? Perfect. So I think I know hopefully we know the version. So let me stop this recording. Nobody needs to listen to this.